Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. I'm here today with two representatives from a company named Electric, and today we're speaking to Nathan Gould, the Director of Engineering, and Yotam Hadass, the SVP of Engineering. Today we're speaking about building a startup data team. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you both here today.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and we'd love to get to know both of you on the show a bit. So how about we introduce Nathan first, and then we'll go to Yotam. So go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Nathan, Engineering Director at Electric. I've collected a bunch of different experiences through a tech career of 10 plus years, although the common thread through the last 7 years has been kind of bootstrapping data engineering and data science functions at startups. I previously did that at a commercial buildings analytics company, was a fairly early adopter of Redshift, built some ML-based products for them before MLOps was a term, and everything was done from scratch. Did some things right, did some things wrong, and then decided I wanted to do it again. So I joined another Series A startup, and that was Electric, and I've been here for 3 years now. Have had the privilege of building out a small but mighty data team for Electric. And I've also taken on some other responsibilities. I'm heavily involved in product development and overseeing some teams working on customer-facing features as well. So that's me in a nutshell. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and go ahead, Yotam. We'd love to hear about your background as well.
Hi, I'm Yotam, SVP of Engineering for Electric. My career also spans a couple of decades, about half of which was an individual engineering contributor, maybe the last 10, 12 years in leadership positions. I am currently the executive engineering leader for Electric, work with Nathan to both grow our team and our platform, where my main concerns is to be able to grow with a business, build a platform that scales, and build an engineering operation that is fun to take part on. Happy to be here and talk about data today.
Yeah, and we're super happy to have both of you, and we have a very exciting, fun show today. And Nathan, I wanted to ask you first, for the first question, how should your first data hires be as a growing startup?
Yeah, so I think there's no single right answer, but I think that if I was forced to give a one-size-fit-all answer, it would be something like this. Your hiring plan for once you start your company, your hiring plan should optimize for developing data management and basic data analytics as a competency as early as possible. There's a couple different ways to get there. I think in 2021, I'm a fan of the model of just hiring someone to own that whole thing end to end. There's a sort of a fairly new title that people have started giving themselves or giving to others called analytics engineer. Which is similar to BI engineer and also has some overlap with data analyst and data engineer, but basically it's someone who can own a solution end to end, understand the business problem, work with stakeholders, and then do the whole process of extracting data, modeling it in a data warehouse, and then kind of exposing it to people in a way that they can work with. And the tooling for those sorts of things have gotten easy enough that you really can, as a early stage software company, have one person do the whole thing, maybe with a little bit of help from engineering or an outside consultant. And once you have that, you kind of have your go-to person for answering data-driven questions, and you can kind of build from there, plug in people who are more specialized on different areas of the business or different types of analytics. But the key there is just getting that foundation of data management and centralized analytics in place as early as possible. So that's the short answer.
Yeah, and Nathan, for everything that you just mentioned here, do you think it's better for people to be more of a generalist or a specialist in the field then? So I'm hearing more of a generalist then, right?
So it really depends on company stage. So I think when a company is just starting a data science or a data operation of any kind, it often will make sense to bring on someone who is a generalist because in the early stages of building a company, things change rapidly. You're probably, there are companies who will sort of start out of the gate and make a big investment in some data science initiative, and that will sort of be the main thrust of the company and why it exists. And for those companies, the answer is totally different. If you're building an NLP product, your first hire should be a very senior NLP engineer or data scientist who can really own that specific domain and run with it. But I think my advice is maybe more applicable to general SaaS B2B or B2C company that has some production application that they need to understand what's happening in it, and some internal tools, and maybe some external data sources. For that, you need a generalist to sort of understand the whole thing end to end, someone who can be flexible about how they help and what skills they have to learn along the way. And then I think over time, as a startup grows and finds product market fit and things become more predictable, that's when you can start to plug in specialists. And so if you're at the beginning of your career and wondering, should I be a generalist or should I be a specialist? Number one, just stop worrying about it so much and try to think about, what do you want to do, what looks interesting, and start there. Because those decisions are pretty reversible, I think. And then the second is more real advice is think about what type of company stage you want to work in. If you want to go for sort of advanced data science and engineering roles at large companies, having a specialty is going to be really important. But often in earlier stage startups, things are more fluid, and if you like that sort of dynamic fast-paced environment, and are okay with not becoming a deep expert in one topic, then there's ways into the data field that involve less specialization and can be just as interesting for the right person.
Yeah, no, I think that was very well explained. It really depends on the stage of the company. So I think that's great. And Yotam, my next question goes to you. And what does your data platform look like, and how did you get to that point?
Sure. So to start, every modern startup will find its way into building a data warehouse. It's at this point pretty much table stakes, and ours is not particularly different. It's based on a few basic things: a data warehouse in itself, which for us, we use Snowflake, and then some technology to transform data into it, which for us is dbt, and then a whole bunch of sources of data. And that really is the crucial piece. You want every type of data to find its way into the data warehouse so that the insights that you produce are cross-functional or cross-referenced and are really meaningful. And of course, then you need some tool to present your BI. For us, it's Looker. It used to be Periscope. So when we started, we probably optimized a little bit more for simple solutions and for budget. And now we optimize a little bit more for flexibility and maturity and ease of maintenance. But I think the top point remains how easy it is for a company to get every single source of data, both from its own product database and also from tools that the company uses, all into one place. So you could then build dashboards with meaningful insights that help you make product decisions, business decisions, and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. And also to you, how do you run a startup data team, and how does that kind of differ from a traditional development team?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. When you're building a data team, you have to think, what role does it play within the larger engineering organization? What kind of data needs did this particular product have, and how am I going to fulfill them with my data team? There could be a situation where things are relatively simple and you just need the data team to build these pipelines of data into a warehouse and to understand how to build insights on top of them. And you kind of have a ninja team of an analyst and an engineer, maybe a scientist that could all together supply the organization, including your own team, with the right insights to inform them on what to develop and how to take care of customers. Or, as I think is the case is with us, and Nathan can maybe also chime in on both the previous question and this one, as far as the technology and what we're doing with it, is that for us, data technology is actually a key part of our future as a product. So for us, being able to utilize data technologies such as AI and ML and predictive analytics, really everything, is a huge key to the future of our product and what's going to differentiate it. So I think each startup needs to evaluate Why do we need a data team? What are the goals for that team? Do they contribute in shaping our product, or are they mostly a source of BI for the business and just build it towards that? Nathan, you want to add a little bit both on technology and tooling and function?
Yeah, sure. So I would add that sort of the number one constant with startups is change. Everything changes all the time, and it's important to kind of pair your choices of technology and projects and also people you hire with the company needs at any given point in time. So that kind of is at the heart of why I recommended the approach of starting with one person who can own analytics engineering end to end, is because that's kind of the least common denominator. Basically, every company needs that, someone who's going to ingest and normalize data and make it easier to report on. But yeah, so we have aspirations and are currently working on further investments to sort of take our data and use it within the product for to make the customer experience better, and also for sort of strategic advantage over the longer run. And that's a pivot for a data team to make. It's not something where you can just say, okay, I hired all of these people and they can do basic reporting and now go build a product. That's a not a 180-degree shift, but it's sort of orthogonal to what they've been doing before. You need the existing infrastructure and skills of sort of ingesting and normalizing and working with data to produce insights and analysis, but then you need to also build on top of it an operation and skill set for kind of getting something into production and doing the product development and design side of it as well. So that's a pretty interesting transition, and one that we're actually going through right now as a company.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious with for both of you, are there any challenges that come with these team developments and just working with the certain stages that you're at right now? Because I'm sure at different stages of an organization or company, there's a lot of different challenges that come with either the people you work with in terms of the expertise levels or the technical knowledge. Is there any challenges that you've noticed at all?
I can start. I'll say, I think the key, yes, there are challenges, and I think that they often boil down to, and the hard parts are the people parts, and the key to success, I think, is making sure that the vision and the skills are there for any project that you're going to take on. So we are starting a chatbot project. Actually, we're working on an effort to create a piece of software that will interact with some of our end users and make resolving certain problems that they have much more efficient. And that requires a different mix of skills than the data team had initially. So what we did is we kind of listed out those skills that we needed, and we found people across the org who had them, and created a little tiger team, basically a temporary team that includes some folks on the data team and also some folks on other teams. We have representation from our site reliability engineering team to help with infrastructure, and also one of our product development teams to help with some of the back-end design work. And we also have a PM, a product manager, who's dedicated to this effort as well. So we pulled in all of those resources and created this kind of temporary team to work on this project. But yeah, I would say that's kind of the challenge, is figuring out what's the right way to scope a project and then get the right collection of people to work on it. It's very easy to pick something too difficult and then fail at it because you don't have your ducks in a row. And it's also it's a hard pivot to make, to go from just sort of a analytics and insights focused data team to actually shipping stuff to production. So yeah, we're going through it right now, and that's some of our early experience.
Yeah, I can add to it. The problem, as with everything else, is a problem of scale. And usually startups grow very fast, and your data team may be the size of X. By the time the business is 2X, your data team is still X. So you're really chasing after lots of different goals with way too few people. That's really true for everything, not just for data problems. With data teams, what happens is they start by serving everybody, all engineering teams and really the entire business. at some point you need them to grow and have dedicated resources, and it's that transition period that really could take a year or two or even more. That's the painful part, when you only have 4 or 5 people when you really need 10, or when you have a centralized function. This is also true for other engineering professions like SRE and DevOps, or sometimes QA, where you usually build them first as a centralized function serving all teams. And at some point it can really work much better, let's say, if you can assign a couple of data scientists to one particular team as opposed to keeping them in a separate data pod. But the problem of scaling. You can't always afford to do that. You usually can't afford to do that until it's sort of slightly too late. And until you have the resources and you're ready operationally, you just have to scramble and do more with less.
Yeah. So one way that manifests for us, and by the way, my answer was talking more about the pivot to productizing data, but even to just keep up with growth more on the analytics and reporting side of things is itself a challenge. In the early days of a startup, you can benefit from having your analytics engineer or whoever owns those responsibilities really just being embedded with the product development teams and kind of knowing everything that's happening. So every schema change, every customer who gets signed on and has a particular, need that, requires some attention from on the data side, that can all sort of be accounted for because that those functions are sort of in communication. As you grow, it tends to be harder to have the data team know about the things that they need to know about to maintain the accuracy of the reports despite some of the changes that are happening to upstream data. So you'll have some team go and build a feature, and the data team, maybe if they weren't in the room when that was being planned, they won't quite understand how it works, and maybe there'll be some assumptions that they're making on the reporting side that end up being no longer true as a result of the change. Just as an example, this sort of thing happens all the time. It has to be sort of managed closely. So what we're actually looking to do next is, as we build out the data team, have some of them focus more on specific areas of the product and sort of work with specific stakeholders and get to really know those areas of the business, rather than just be sort of a floating analytics engineer who might work on anything, which is great, and we'll still stay flexible about who contributes to what, but some degree of specialization, I think, even at our still relatively early stage, is necessary to kind of get to that next level of scale.
Yeah, no, great explanations. Great explanations from both of you today. And there's clearly a lot of different challenges and a lot of different things you need to think about to prevent these challenges from occurring. And Nathan, my last question goes to you. As a startup, do you evaluate investments in machine learning or AI at all? And how has that changed given the rapid process in the space?
Yeah, so the ML and AI space has obviously exploded and changed 10 times over in the last decade. I think that it's kind of always been true that the value. There's sort of two things to consider. One is, what competitive advantage or what advantage can you get from an AI project, and the other is what is the ROI in business terms. So when I say competitive advantage, I think that this is sort of it's important to understand whether, if you're taking on an ML or AI project, whether it's something that you or your company can uniquely do as a result of your position in the industry or the data set that you have. I'd say maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it was still the case that a company could, do something with ML and AI and it was impressive and could create some buzz. What's happened in the last 5 years, to a degree that I'm surprised by, being in the industry, is sort of the verticalization of ML solutions. So you now have a bunch of tools out there that are really, really good at applying ML and AI to specific problems, and those are packaged in tools that companies can buy off the shelf. So if you have an ML use case involving, say, churn prediction or forecasting of resources within your company, these are things that 5 years ago, a company might have reasonably said, okay, let's try to solve that ourselves using machine learning or statistics. I think in 2021, anyone considering an investment like that really should first look at what else is out there in terms of off-the-shelf solutions, and convince yourself that you can't just buy one of those before you turn around and have a data scientist pay attention to a problem that is a little bit potentially a commodity problem, a problem that other companies might have as well. Where it really will make sense to get into ML and AI yourself as a company is if you are working on a core problem of your own business that other businesses don't have. So for Electric, for instance, we're trying to build a fully integrated software-powered IT service provider, and what we have that's unique compared to other companies is we have a 360-degree view of our customers' IT environments. So other IT companies tend to be point solutions. You have your best-in-class device management tool, network management tool, SaaS management tool, and so on. We see those each see 10 degrees, we see 360 degrees. So anything that we can do by combining that 360-degree view of data together is something that we can uniquely do that other companies can't. So that's kind of part of the rubric for us, is if we're going to invest in ML, it really should be in an area where we are it really should be in an area where it's a unique capability that we have and something that will make a difference to our customers in the quality of the core service that we deliver. So in a word, make sure that it's a core investment, not something peripheral. And then in terms of ROI, I think that can also get complicated with data science projects, because product and engineering teams tend to work at our company stage. They tend to work on projects that can be sort of designed and scoped in a certain period of time, and then be delivering real customer value in 3 months. And that's great, and it doesn't always work for data science. So data science requires a little bit more experimentation. You have to be able to prototype things and put them into the wild and see how they work, and then kill some of them if they don't work. It's not as straightforward to sort of take a large deliverable and break it down and estimate every piece of it, because at some level you have to understand whether what you're trying to do is even possible given the data that you have. And that's not possible without actually putting in some upfront investment, which goes beyond sort of the level of technical discovery that would be involved in planning a more traditional software development project. So the key there to cut through all that complexity is really to just phase your work very carefully and be clear that if you are upstream and you are not yet working on kind of a full-scale deployment of a ML-based product that's going to impact all of your customers, then the goal of that project should not be to impact the bottom line of the company. It should be to sort of prove something more intermediate, like can you improve the customer satisfaction for some small fraction of customers who go through some small fraction of some experience? And if you can, that's success, and you can take that to the next round and say, okay, now we're going to try to build on that success. Fast forward 3 years, and hopefully you have a great MLAI product that helps your business, but you can't get there without being really careful about the sort of increments necessary to prove out the value first, and then make the full investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And great insight with all of the work that you're currently working on. And I wanted to say thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today on the Data Standard podcast. It was so great to hear more about your company and the things you're working on. And where can everyone find both of you online to connect? We can start with Nathan and then go to Yotam.
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter as Nathan E. Gould.
I am just on LinkedIn, but very good responding there. So please find me there. And also check out the blog. We have a new blog on electric.ai, where actually our first blog post was data related. It was about how Stitch, the tool Stitch, solved Electric's data ingestion needs. So you'll get to hear a little bit of insights from Dan Friedman, our data engineer.
Perfect. And for more information on the data standard, everyone can find us on www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. And thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to have you and hear more about your stories and your background. So it was such a pleasure to have both of you.
Thank you, Catherine. Good to be here.
Thank you.